Welcome to the Latin Wealth Podcast, a podcast dedicated to educating the Latino community about entrepreneurship, investing, and business.
What's going on, Latin Wealth family? Welcome to another episode to the Latin Wealth Podcast. Very, very excited about today's conversation. I know you guys hear me say that a lot, but look, I'm actually excited today because we have two guests on the podcast all at once. So it's going to be a great conversation. And look, a little bit about our guests today. They are the founder of the Back to the Island YouTube channel. They are a couple that was born in Puerto Rico. They moved to the United States, and they ultimately made the decision to move back to the island about 3 years ago. And really, they've been vlogging their journey to move back to Puerto Rico ever since, and documenting their process in doing things like buying property, flipping, and the whole nine. And I came across their YouTube channel, and I was like, yo, this is such a dope channel. It's so refreshing to see people that are creating content, and they're showing the process of what they are going through, and they're, you know, any questions that you may have, they're pretty much answering them in the video. So really refreshing to see. Definitely wanted to get them on the podcast. Welcome, Tiara and Angel. How are you guys doing today?
Hi, Chris. We just want to, we're thankful for this opportunity. Thank you for reaching out. This is definitely an experience for us, but we're here to kind of just talk about our experience and how it's been for us here on the island, and how our process has been coming back from the mainland. But so far, so good.
Absolutely. Okay, cool. So look, I want to know, were you guys both born in Puerto Rico?
Yeah, we were both born. I was in Fajardo, which is more down west or east, and then
I was born in Condado, which is like San Juan area. Everybody knows.
Okay,
San
cool.
Juan.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. So did you guys meet in Puerto Rico, or did you guys meet in Florida? Where did you guys meet at?
So we actually met in Florida. Our parents moved to Florida. Well, my parents moved to Florida from Puerto Rico, and we were kind of raised some of our lives over there. And then same for my husband. Where did you guys go after?
Florida. We were kind of ping-ponging back and forth. My family moved around a lot. So we ended up in Florida for a good amount of my life, I would say my youth, and then towards my adult life, which is when we ended up meeting at church over there in Florida, Tampa, Florida.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, cool. So when you guys, I would love to know you guys' experience from moving from Puerto Rico to Florida. What was that experience like for both of you? Was it I don't think it was a culture shock because you're moving to Florida. There's a lot of other Puerto Ricans out there. But what was that experience for you guys, that transition like?
So at least for me, I was actually not too happy that I was moving to Florida.
Okay.
We were just kind of jumping back and forth, and I was ready to really set roots, especially when you're young. I was just about to get into a high school that is for architecture, and I worked hard to kind of get into that. That was after like the second time we moved back, and I was just ready to set roots here. I was ready to start my high school, and then my mom's like, "Oh, we're leaving again," and so I wasn't too happy, man. To be honest with you, we ended up going to Florida, and I was over there just kind of missing Puerto Rico, missing it's what they say, island life is real. Like it's very different. The island life, the atmosphere, the culture. And once you're here, you get sucked into it, so you kind of get used to it, But for me personally, it was a little bit more like I wasn't too happy about leaving to Florida, but
Yeah, interesting.
I think for me, I was just young. I didn't really. I was 8. So when we moved, I was excited. It was something new. We were experiencing something new. But then every summer, we always came back and stayed the whole summer with my grandparents. So then we would stay with my grandmother the 2 months, and then we would come back. So we always came back. It wasn't like we just stayed over there and never returned. So we always had that experience coming back, which was great. And then we kind of just wanted to give that to our children, our experience here in Puerto Rico.
Yeah. Okay. That's super dope. All right. So you guys met at a church. How old were you guys when you guys met each other?
Mm-hmm. So, how old are we? We've been married almost 12 years now.
Right.
Wow.
So I want to say, yeah.
21, 22?
Yeah, something around there.
Okay.
He was like one of the leaders in the youth ministry. And I was just invited by a friend to visit. And it was just kind of like, we had mutual friends, but we never met. It was like an interesting dynamic there. And then my best friend ended up going to high school with him. I didn't know until later. And then that's when she kind of introduced us. And then it was just
yeah,
until now.
Absolutely. I love it. Okay. So, I mean, you guys don't have to say your age, but I don't know, whatever your age is, you guys don't look it. I'll say that. Y'all look like you 20 and 21 right now.
Oh my God. No. We're actually, I'm 33.
Okay,
34.
Cool. Okay, cool. I love it. Dope. All right. So, cool. I want to fast forward a little bit. So you guys meet, you guys get married. Eventually you guys have kids, you start your career, and something I really want to highlight, Angel, you said in multiple of your videos, you're like, yo, you were kind of in that 9-to-5 mindset, that runt, that hamster wheel. And talk to us about that mindset of like, yo, you feeling like you've been doing the same thing over and over and over. It's repetitive. When did you get that itch, or when did you guys both get that urge to like, yo, I think we should move back to Puerto Rico. Maybe we should, do something different.
Right. Yeah. So in a couple of videos, I did highlight that because it was such an important part of why we ended up doing what we did. It really was birthed from a mixture of me missing my roots. I remember at that time, a Netflix episode came out about Puerto Rico and what it went through after the hurricane. And coincidentally, at that time, I was really just so unhappy with my job. It was a great career. It was actually in the sector of analytics, and it was a great company. I was working for a startup. I want to say it was about 5 years there, and I was just getting to the point where I was just so unhappy because I just felt like I was getting disconnected to the things that really should have been the most important things, So even though I had a great job, I was working from home, but I felt like I was so far away from home at the same time. And it was actually during the pandemic, so I think a lot of people kind of felt that way when a lot of these jobs went remote, and people just started. I would say it felt like a big awakening that happened amongst a lot of people, where they were just starting to kind of like, okay, what does really happiness mean to me, And from all these questions birthed the idea of, let's do something crazy and drastic, and see what happens. So.
And what was your reaction when he was like, yo, let's do something crazy? I'm not really feeling the 9-to-5, but what was your reaction and thoughts?
Yeah, no, the thing with me was that I was already like discerning what he was going through. Like I could tell it was weighing on him. He was carrying the load, and I was like, wow, he looks like miserable. And he had already talked about wanting to move. Some of the places that he was talking about was Texas. We talked about maybe North Carolina, maybe places that weren't too far from Florida, so we could always visit the family. But I already knew that he was just ready. And I didn't want to hold him back because, they say a happy wife, happy life, but also a happy husband, a happy life,
Hey, talk about it.
And that was big. That was big for me. So that was weighing on me as much as it was weighing on him. And then I wasn't fond of it because we had built our life there. My mother, his mother, our parents, our sisters, our brothers, like our nucleus was there. And we already had our kids. And I was like, we're already used to having everybody around. Like we have our village, we have our best friends, that our family, like everybody's around. And I was like, man, we're going to move. Even though we're from here, we have to kind of come back and start new and start fresh. And it was a little bit like, oh, I don't even know if I want to do this. But I already knew like how much it was weighing on him. So at that point, it wasn't even a question like, what do we need to do to just make this better for us? And one day I was like, let me just look on Zillow. Let me just see what there is, because since we flip, we're like, okay, well, wait, maybe we can just find a house that's cheap and we can just renovate it ourselves, make this a project ourselves, like our family, and build it into something that we love. And I had found this house. I think we'll never forget the house because it was really the house that like brought us to Puerto Rico. And that house was in Naguabo. And it was like a beautiful house. It had like a pool. It was like 2-story, had everything. Obviously, it had missing windows, like the pool wasn't done. Like, it had a space for his mom who was moving over here with us. And I was like, oh my God, babe, like, look at this house. They're only asking like,
price was crazy cheap.
Yeah. 50,000 maybe.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God, like we can do this. Like we can so get into this house. I mean, it has the bones, it has the structure, it has everything that we want. And I was like, okay, like I showed it to him and then we kind of looked at each other like like this can't be done. And then the next day, I think we got like Angel just started making a list of all these houses we wanted to go look at. And then we just took a flight. We took a flight to Puerto Rico and we were here like 2 days, maybe 3 days at most.
Yeah, less than a week.
Yeah. And we just had like a list of like 10 to 12 houses. We were like, okay, we're going to look at all of these houses. There has to be at least one that we're going to like that's going to move us. And that's another story there.
Yeah. I love it. So you guys said a couple different things in there. First off, I love how you guys question like what the American dream really is. Like and that's big right now. A lot of people are questioning it, and a lot of people are like going against the grain of what's been taught to us, right? I know our grandparents, probably yours as well. It's like move to America, get a white picket fence house, and get a couple cars, and that's it. And have your 9 to 5, and that's it. But we realize like there's a lot more to life than just that. And I love that it seems like you guys are rooted in church. Sometimes for you to get what God has for you, you have to open up, that comfortability, right? That thing that's comfortable that we're hanging so tight onto. You have to give that up just a little bit to get something that's greater, right? And again, a lot of people, we dream, we go on Zillow, we check out the property in Puerto Rico, and we're like, man, it's only 50,000, we can do that. But then they stop at that point because they don't want to give up that comfortability. So I love that you guys were action takers. The next day, boom, boom, you're making a list. You're booking the flight. You're going out there to look at the property, and you're taking the risk, right? You're taking those steps. And I think that's where a lot of our people, they stop at. They stop at like, yo, we're just gonna dream and think about it. It's probably too hard. Let's just stay in our comfort zone, right? Like you said, you guys have friends, family, best friends, churches, and whatnot, and you have to sacrifice that to achieve what you guys really want. So I love that you guys took that immediate step.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was not easy by any means.
No, for sure.
It wasn't, but we just kind of got to that point of like, it's either we stay where we are or we make a change. And we were definitely not going to stay where we were because it was definitely already taking a toll. And it was almost like that pivotal moment of like, okay, well, we either going to stay in this life that, the picket life, the life that the American dream, or we find something else that we're going to have to work hard towards. We're going to have to sacrifice. We're going to have to, maybe cut down on certain things, but it was either that or what we had. And I already knew that, where we were just wasn't working for us anymore,
Yeah. Okay. I love it. All right. So let's fast forward. So you guys have a list of properties you want to check out. You guys hop on the flight to Puerto Rico. What was the game plan? Like I want to start walking through maybe a game plan that you guys went through to help somebody else out there that's in that scenario that wants to, do what you guys are doing.
Right. So obviously, we aren't like people that come from wealth or like, we didn't have money set aside to do all the things that we did. We had to get real creative, and that's where things like just making creative financial moves sometimes propels you to do what you want to do. And at that time, just to give some real practical kind of steps, we had a house, and that house we bought at a really good price. We did some renovations on it. At the same time, we did our first flip over there. So we were kind of getting our feet wet with buying properties that were distressed and fixing them up. We ended up taking out what's called a HELOC on our property. Mm-hmm. And so being able to do that, which pretty much that's just like a big credit card, against the equity of your house. We used those funds to go out and search and see what can we actually do with this amount that we have that could potentially cover a property and the renovations for said property. So that's what we used as kind of our baseline to create our itinerary of houses we were going to go see. So at the time, we were finding so many properties, some around the ranges of like $60,000 to $80,000. Some already done up for close to $100,000, and our budget was somewhere around that. So that's what we did. We made a list. We saw that there was a lot of these properties available. And so that was the funds that we ended up using. So, basically using the things that we already had and having that money kind of work for us in a sense.
That's good. That's good. So you guys based it on so initially, before you even started game planning and all that, were you guys thinking, okay, we're going to buy a distressed property, fix it up? Or were you guys open to something that was already, fixed up and newly renovated, I should say?
I want to say we were ready to buy something distressed because we already saw that there's always going to be that space, to make money as well. Right. Because, if we were going to buy a property that was already kind of like retail or ready, to live in, then we weren't going to be able to put in that sweat equity or whatever, the elbow grease to bring it up in value and have that work for us after seeing that money really is there and it works for you as a homeowner. So, and I also want to mention too that we did a flip. The first flip was at that time, we had just finished doing our first flip, and that money we actually used to pay down our house's mortgage. So that was why we had such a buffer for more equity to pull out.
Interesting. Okay, cool. So you guys have your list. You have a game plan. You go into Puerto Rico. Now you guys made a video. You guys were sitting in the car and you were like, hey, we just got done viewing a property and it was like a whirlwind. You guys didn't see the one you wanted. It was, it was like a roller coaster day, right? You guys ended up putting in an offer on one of the property. Was that the first property you put an offer on, or was that later down the line?
That was like the last property, like hours before we were going to get on a plane and leave. That was like,
right.
So we had the list of properties. Okay. So I guess going back to how we got here, I had an uncle that lived in Rio Grande, and I was like, hey, we're only going to be here for a little bit. Can we just stay at your place? We were going to rent a car to kind of look around at these properties. But then at that time he offered to take us. So then we kind of made it like this little event. But the first few houses, so going back, the house that actually brought us to Puerto Rico, we go and check it out. We're super excited. And then we get there and it was like hanging off of a cliff almost. It was like right in front of a main road. So there was like not enough space in the front for the kids. We have children. So like the backyard as a cliff just is not going to work for us. Like no matter how much we love it. And then we just kind of drove around the area and we're just like, oh, okay, well maybe this isn't going to work out. Like this is not going to be feasible for us. And then after that, Angel had found a place in Maricao. So who knows about Puerto Rico? Maricao is like in the mountain.
Very remote.
And oh my God, just to get there was like 2 hours, like just curves. And we were like,
wow.
And that one was actually a church. That was a church that we were looking into buying to then maybe turn it into a house or have like, a rental property.
It was an abandoned church.
It was abandoned, yeah. So they were just selling it. So, I mean, Angel has like an eye for finding properties and then turning that into something else. At first I was like, oh, I don't know about this. But then we went to check it out and the space was beautiful. Like had it been somewhere else, I would have been like, yeah, that's great. Like, let's go for it. But it was just to get there was just It was a nightmare,
Too much.
honestly.
Yeah.
And we just didn't like it. And then at the end, the last day right before we leave, I think we have like, I don't know, we have like 4 hours, and we're just kind of driving around. We're trying to look at the house, but we can't find a realtor that's available, that's answering their calls, because that was another factor for us. We just couldn't get a hold of anybody. And then we just stopped at this Walgreens. Did we stop at the Walgreens, or did we call somebody before that? I think we were at this Walgreens. We had called, and somebody finally answered, and we're like, hey, we want to go check out this house in Trujillo Alto. And he was like, okay, well, let me give you the contact of this realtor, because she has all the keys to all these properties. I was like, okay, perfect, great, like, we're here. And then we ended up calling her, and then she was like, okay, well, I'm actually like in the area. If you guys just want to wait there, and we'll meet up, and then we'll go. I said, perfect. She gets there, and then we're talking, and then, she gets down, we're talking, and then in our conversation, like, we found out that she's from Florida as well. And, we have like all these things in common. She speaks English. And it was just, we just felt more comfortable speaking in English when it came to like realtor terms and stuff like that.
Yeah, and business and whatnot.
We're like, okay, great. So we hit it off with her. She was amazing. She ends up taking us to this house that she thinks is the house we want to see. And then she's like, oh, I got 2 houses I want to show you. And then we're like, okay, great, let's go. And when we get to the house, we're looking at each other like, this was the house like, that we wanted to see. I think she got the wrong house. And then as we're walking out, she's like, I don't think this house works for you guys. I think I have a better house to show you guys. So we're like, okay, great. Like, we're taking advantage. We got like 3 hours left. Like, how many houses can you show us that maybe one will, work for us? And then we finally get to the house, and we look at each other, and we're like, wow, this was actually the house we wanted to see in the first place. The one that she was like, oh, wait, I have another house that will work better for you guys. And then we finally get there. We're like, wow, this is it. And we start walking around, and we're like, okay, this could be it.
We really fell in love with it. And so she had the paperwork to put an offer. So to answer your question, that was the house that we started the journey with, the one in Trujillo.
That's incredible. Okay, so in the video, you guys put in an offer immediately. You guys were ready to go. You weren't playing around. So walk us through, like, what were some things that were needed to put in an offer on a property in Puerto Rico? Like, what were like 3 things that you immediately need? Somebody immediately needs.
Right. So if we were to put an offer on that property, I knew that one, we would have to be able to come back. Let's say they accept the offer to close, because here in Puerto Rico, you have to be in person to do the closings. You can, I think, do power of attorney processes, but that's a big thing in Puerto Rico. You have to be here for the closings. Another thing is you have to be able to, be clear and honest with the realtor on what the terms of the offer is. Their commission. I mean, when you're actually doing it from a standpoint of an investor, like, you care about these things, like how much is it for the commission? What are the numbers going to come out to be? If it's a cash offer, you have to have the proof of funds. So you have to bring with you all these things, because a lot of times, like, you can't wait for the last minute to go print that out. So we actually brought all those things and had it available, just the proof of funds. She had the paperwork to do the offer there, but some realtors can easily just take a text message as an offer, so it doesn't have to be so formal. But with her, we did like a formal offer, because this was a property that was a bank-owned property, so it had a process, and she was actually one of the few realtors that had access to some of these bank-owned properties, so that kind of worked perfectly. So the 3 things I would say is having your proof of funds. Being able to show up, so you can't just do everything virtually. And then also, what, if you're going to pay cash and stuff, what are the commissions and things like that, like the breakdown of the numbers.
And so how can you maybe give some advice to people out there? Because I know you mentioned, and I've heard this as well, dealing with some realtors out there can be a pain in the butt. And some people have had some bad experiences, right? What would you guys look for, or what would you suggest for somebody out there that's looking for a realtor in Puerto Rico? I know one of the biggest things is like making sure you're comfortable doing business with that individual. And what I mean by that is, like, do they speak English? Do you guys speak English? Like, that would help you guys out a lot. but what other things would you recommend when looking for a realtor out there?
Right. So at least for me, I don't want to like bash realtors because they
Right.
do have a value. And when you do find a good realtor, you do benefit so much from it because they just help facilitate that offer so much better. But the biggest key to all this is communication. Obviously, you're buying a property and it's primarily Spanish speaking. A lot of people that are moving back to the island are from the diaspora, so a lot of people do speak Spanish. But is that Spanish clear to you? Are you able to communicate things that are very important? And the level of communication from the realtor to you, if it is to your liking, to where you're understanding, okay, every aspect of the offer and every aspect of the process. If you don't feel that, I say search for a realtor. Do that. Start there first, because they are going to help. And there is a lot of things that are very niche to Puerto Rico. But if that doesn't work out for you, like, don't let it deter you. We've done processes without realtors. You can, as a buyer, do things and not necessarily not having a realtor is a deal breaker. You could do, direct to owner purchases and things like that. If you are doing cash offers or creative financing options. But finding a realtor, I would say, is very key. But to locate the right one, make sure the communication is up to par, and make sure that they're responsive, because if that person doesn't answer the phone for you, someone else will.
Okay, cool. So you guys put the offer in that day. When did you guys find out that you got the property?
Yeah, so I'd say it was like a week later.
Really?
Remember, this is like bank owned. It's also a cash offer. So cash offers are take much less time than they do a financed property.
Right.
So it was a week later. She sends us an email and she was like, "Hey, just want to let you know, they approved the offer, and they actually approved it for almost like $10,000 less, because she had gone in our behalf. And the importance of finding a good realtor, she had negotiated on our behalf $10,000 less, which we had no idea, but it ended up working out because it was like exactly like our budget. That was like it. So we were just like, oh my God. So it literally took a week. And then after that, she was like, okay, well, we're going to close in a week. Like a week after. And we're like, oh, this is real. Like, they accepted. Like, now, like, there's no going back. Like, we are moving to Puerto Rico. Like, now everything just kind of rushed just to get over here.
So if you guys, could you guys say how much you guys paid for that property?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 70,000.
Okay.
Somewhere around 70.
And so for some people out there, they probably want to know, is it like 3-bedroom, 2 baths? But like you said, was it a church, right?
No, that one was one that we ended up passing on because it was so
okay.
remote.
This was an actual home.
Yeah, this one was a multi-family, actually. This one was in the mountains of Trujillo Alto. It's a little bit more. It was a little bit remote, but not Maricao remote. But the place was so awesome. It actually had, the main part was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath at the main level. And then since it was off a mountain, it would cascade down to another level. And on the other level, there was 2 apartments that were 2-bedroom, 1 bath, and then 1 unfinished studio apartment. So this thing had 4 units technically. This was a massive, it was a crazy property.
That's wild. Okay, so when you guys put the offer in, what was your vision for this property? Did you want it just to fix it all up and rent it out? What did you want to do to the property? Yeah,
we had we were kind of jumping on the visions in the beginning. Our first vision was, okay, we're going to live in this property. Like, this was going to be our, for not forever, but for a long time property.
Yeah, for a long
and we were
time.
just going to live on the top, and then we were going to do Airbnbs on the bottom, because it had those multiple apartments, and then it had just this crazy view that you could, because it was high up in the mountains, so it had this really nice view in the back. And so we just started kind of doing this massive renovation on that property, and it was definitely a high price tag. Like, we were going crazy because we had this vision, but then our vision started changing afterwards, to later down the road.
Okay, so what would you recommend to people out there that have, when they buy a property, they have a vision for it? Like, is there some things that you would have them consider? Like, as you said, like even like with podcasting, like you start off with something and 30 episodes later, it can be completely different. You can be talking about completely different subject. So what would you recommend to people out there when they're starting off and they have that vision? Should they have like a bigger budget just in case things change? Like, what would you consider?
Yeah, I think that I feel like maybe that property, if we would have gone back, we probably would have done some things differently because of the fact that we were just so torn on the vision on what to do. And if you ask us, like, from what we know now, because obviously you can only do things with the experience that you have at the moment. It's not till after later that you gain more experience and you say, oh, I could have maybe done this, I could have maybe done that. But I would say, to anybody that's just doing anything that's whether real estate or in any other field, be open, have a plan, but be open to potentially changes to that plan, because you could come up with a better idea down the road, and don't make permanent decisions on temporary factors, in the sense of, like, maybe holding on to that property and rediscovering a different option on how to use it, maybe through Airbnb or through rentals, or maybe it is time to pivot and you sell the property and move on to something else. But, just sometimes we could just maybe on both sides of the spectrum, we could be too stuck on, this is what I bought it for, this is what we're going to do with it. And then you miss out on a potential opportunity, something cool. Or you just start flip-flopping and then you just kind of like go with the wind and you don't really have a structure. So it's really trying to find a balance.
I love that. Okay, so let's back it up a little bit. You guys closed on the property. It took 1 week to do it. And now you guys are like, okay, it's go time. Get the kids. We're going to PR. First off, what was the feeling once you landed and you guys were at the property? Like, what was the feeling? And then what was step one to get this thing going?
Yeah, I mean, the feeling was surreal. We're like, oh my gosh, we are here. This is our house. Like, Angel literally took the for sale sign and just kind of threw it up. And we're just like, like, this is it. This is home. This is now home, And the first step, we started cutting the grass. But yeah, it's like, what can we do right now to make this better for us? But ultimately, our realtor had a contact of a contractor. So we were actually working on some things on the house while we were still, dealing with selling the house in Florida. So they were already kind of starting the process while we were in the States. And then that kind of helped us get things moving. By the time I moved first with my mom, so my mom came with me and my daughter. So us three came first, and we started kind of working in the house, putting on air conditioning, cleaning, pressure washing, doing what we can to kind of get it ready so that when they would get here, it would be ready to go. And then Angel stayed back with my son and his mother, and then he was getting everything ready to sell the house. So then that was like a whole nother process of getting things sold. We also ended up shipping the car. So we shipped our car and some of our furniture from Florida to Puerto Rico. So it was just a mixture of a lot of things going on. But we were excited. We were ready to go. We were just ready to get our hands.
And so for for the kids, was there a school in the area? Like, because you said it was kind of up in the mountains and whatnot. I think you guys did mention you were homeschooling. How was that process? Like, just simple things like getting a license or putting your kids in school, grocery shopping. How were those like things that are maybe were normal for you to do in Florida? You guys kind of have to figure out in Puerto Rico. What were some of those challenges?
Yeah, I mean, grocery shopping was the same. Obviously, we're going to have more vegetables based off of, what they have here. Well, which is great because we love them just as much. So the grocery store was the same. Finding a school was different because we didn't want to put her in public school. So we were looking for schools to put her in. But we found one that was fairly close. It wasn't too far. And the process wasn't difficult either to get her in. They do require here that, they have like dental checks as part, almost like a physical. They have to have a dental check. The physical, and they have to send like these 2x2 photos of your child, and then, whatever payment you have to make for the month. And then,
driver's license was a little bit difficult
that
though, because here there's a lot of like government agencies are very difficult to kind of navigate through. So like you ask anybody that moves to the island, like you have to have tons of patience to just deal with like things like just getting a driver's license, renewing your registration. Things that we're just so used to just being able to do online or just book an appointment and then you're in and out in 15 minutes sometimes. Here, that was a completely different thing. And so, that was very different. School, we just were kind of in unknowns. So we thought to ourselves, let's just put her in a private school that she can kind of continue to speak in English to the other kids and the teacher while she would learn the Spanish. And then later down the road, we actually started trying out homeschooling options and things like that.
Got you. Okay, cool. Excellent. So you guys land, you're cleaning up the property, you're getting your license and you're putting the kids in school and whatnot. Now you're finally working on the property. What were some of the things that you ran into that were challenges, and how did you overcome them with that first property?
I got a good one. Our electrical. We had 2 meters, one for the top house and then another one for the bottom. I guess because the house had been abandoned for so long, they put this little clip on it. And just to turn the bottom story light on, it took us like a month just to get the light on. And then it was just so that one of the Luma employees can come and then remove the tag.
Luma's our electric company.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like it wasn't a lot they had to do, but we still had to wait a month to get that on, and it was a lot of like back and forth of calling them to see what the process is and how it's going, and just a lot of follow-up had to be done. That was definitely a big factor, and we literally just had to wait. Like there was nothing we could do except we connected an extension cord from our house to the bottom apartment
for my mom, because she was in one of the bottom apartments. So.
Wow.
So, she connected her TV, her fan, and everything she needed until we were able to get that on. And I mean, everything worked the same except the air conditioning.
Okay, so things, like you said, they take a little bit longer to get done out there. What else?
Yeah, it was so we needed to get the plumbing certification. We needed to get the light certification. These things were requirements for properties that were abandoned or for more than a year. I believe it's still the rule. So we had to do that. We had to do the legwork on just making sure we got all our paperwork for the property, and then finding the resources, because that's something that's so big. The people, when they come to Puerto Rico, they move to Puerto Rico, they say, "Oh wow, look at this cottage in the mountain. I'm gonna live here, a fairy tale. I'm so happy." It's like, what about when you need a hospital, or like when you need to go to groceries, or you need access to just resources? You have to be mindful of that when you choose that. So this property was amazing, but you just had to come down a 15-minute mountain drive. And I mean, 15 minutes down the mountain is like half an hour on a straight road. It's crazy. I mean, you'll be zipping down through next to a semi truck and a curb, and then you see a horse just go out of nowhere. This guy's taking horses, and then you see chickens just fly out of nowhere. It's like, okay, now we're at Walgreens. So
I love it. Wow. Okay. Cool. So, fast forward us to the point where you look at the property and you can say like, okay, this thing is complete. Like the lights are working, maybe we have the yard is good. What did the property look like? The final vision for what you guys completed on that property?
Yeah, it was definitely way better than when we first got it. I mean, a lot of our budget, unfortunately, had to go to some structural repairs that need to be done. But once that was done, we did a wraparound balcony in the bottom. We painted and fixed all the plastering issues around the walls. I mean, this was it was maybe close to 4,000 square foot property, so it was a big property, a lot of painting, a lot of plastering, fixing windows. We did the front gate. We replastered it and put solar gates on them. There was two of them. And so, we try to make that thing look modern, look like a kind of like modern oasis in the mountains kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because we were still with the mindset of we're going to put it on Airbnb. So, we were remodeling in that way, tiling the floors, things that if we would have thought to ourselves, okay, we're not going to go that route, we would have saved a lot. I mean, we spent close to $100,000 on that renovation.
So you bought the property for $7 million and you put in $100,000.
Put $100,000.
Okay, cool. All right. So, do you guys still have the property, or did you guys sell it?
We ended up actually selling it. So we sold it, which was one of the things that, like I said, if we could have gone back, we probably would have kept that property and maybe done some other creative financing like we did with the Brandon property, because it was just had so much rental capabilities.
Yeah.
But thankfully we did sell for the profit, so that was good.
So you guys got an offer, and you're like, well, let's just sell it. It's a good offer.
Yeah, we ended up kind of getting tired of the lack of closeness to resources and things like that, like I was mentioning. So it was like, okay, this is great for maybe that rental or whatever, but practical. To get to my daughter's school, to get to the grocery store, we're just getting tired of not being close. Like we were far away from the church we were visiting. And so we were like, you know what, let's put the house on the market and see what happens, because, we might find something that is more flat land that we wanted to, and have more acreage so we could run around and kind of get our hands in on sustainability, farming, things like that. So we put the house for sale with that same realtor.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So could you guys say how much you sold the property for?
Yeah, I think it sold for $238. It was $238.
Okay, so $238, and so what was the next step from there? You guys are obviously looking for something, like you said, more flat land, a little bit more space and whatnot, closer to different resources. I'm sure you guys been in Puerto Rico for an extended time, so you kind of maybe know the area a little bit. Where were you guys looking at next?
So I think next we were already working on another flip. And this one was in Levittown. So by the time we sold, we ended up moving to the flip we were working on. And then that one was closer to a lot of things. That was more of like centralized. But luckily we had that. So we ended up just moving to our next renovation, which was already complete. Was it already complete? It was already completed by the time we finished. It was just kind of in the process of getting it sold. So we ended up just staying there until we found like what our next project was, or our next house was going to be.
So it's that big farm that everybody has. A lot of people have come to the YouTube for the farm.
So that property is where the farm was at?
No, that property was in Tua Baja, which is like not where the property was. It was like a house in a neighborhood. It had no land.
Okay. So after that is when you guys moved to the property with the farm and whatnot, and kind of where the YouTube videos. Okay, cool. That makes sense. Dang. So, all right. So in the process, you guys also, I wanted to highlight this as well. You guys also started Prolific Construction.
We started Prolific Construction after we were in the farm.
Okay. So you guys moved to the farm. I'm moving you guys along a little bit. You've done this a couple different times in Puerto Rico. You're like, okay, why not start a construction company? We've done this a couple different times. We have the resources. What was your mindset in starting that construction company, and what are some of the things that you guys are doing now?
Yeah, so Prolific actually started from YouTube, because we were doing the flips. I was kind of just wearing the GC hat and just overseeing the subs come in and do their work for already a few properties. So, I felt comfortable with it. And, we would keep posting the videos on YouTube. And it wasn't until like we were already at our farm and someone reaches out through the YouTube and they reach out via email and they're like, hey, I want you to remodel our property. And I'm like, well, we don't really remodel for other people. We do our own flips, Right. I've never even thought of that, And I really was worried because I'm like, I don't want to deal with customers, like it's different when you're doing it for yourself. Like, okay, maybe the tile came in a little bit of a different color, but I'll live with it. you're dealing with a client, it's like, yo, it needs to be perfect, exactly how my vision was, because I'm paying for that. And so from there, the guy reached out, and he's actually a YouTuber as well. And he reached out. He's like, hey, I want you to remodel our property. And that was literally the birth of the company, because I was like, I called a couple of the good subs that I've kept contact with, and I'm like, hey guys, let's get together, because I think we're gonna start, doing a remodel. But we weren't really registered as a company, so that's when I started doing the legwork and registering myself as a company.
So I know you also mentioned there was a little bit some humps you have to get over with registering with a company. I think you mentioned to do it with somebody else, get some help. What does that process briefly look like for registering a company in Puerto Rico?
All right, so there's different kind of company types that you can register for, at least for the LLC that we registered for. We actually did it with a buddy of ours that we met in church that was an accountant. And this is almost like what they call a servicio de gestoría, where basically you have someone that already knows what they're doing, and they kind of do the process for you, and they charge a fee. And a lot of times I recommend that to people, because it is very specific, the process. And just to kind of briefly explain the process, you have to first register the property, and do it through you have to register through SURI. You have to get your certificado de comerciante. You have to get your articles set up. You got to set up who is going to be part of the company. It's all just and some of these things are very similar to registering in Florida, because you do have your articles of organization, and then you have to do explain who are the positions and things like that, and then you get your EIN. That's through the IRS, I believe. You get the EIN number for the company, and then once you have all these things, then you have to make sure that you're set on a municipal level. So with a construction company, you have to have a patente municipal, which is municipal taxes, and then just a couple things. But that person helped us to kind of set that up pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. And so you guys now are not only doing flips for yourself, but you guys are doing other projects. You're working with other people as well, right?
Right.
Okay, cool. Dang, that's crazy. So fast forward a little bit more. You guys just put out a video, I think 2-3 days ago, maybe 2 days ago, where did you guys sell the farm?
I sold the farm.
Okay, so man, you guys have done so much in the couple years that you've been there. You guys should really be proud of you. I mean, look, you guys should definitely be proud. I think one of the videos you mentioned you've done like 14 flips in your guys' lifetime, or around that number.
Seven properties, 14 closings, because we'll buy it and then we'll sell it. So
you'll sell it.
Yeah, just being in those rooms, yeah.
That's incredible. So you guys have the farm. You guys obviously get probably an offer. You put it on the market. You get an offer. What was your mindset in selling the farm? And I mean, ultimately, where's the next thing that you want to go to now? Like, what's the next step for you guys?
Yeah, so I think our the biggest factor here when it comes to buying land with a property is that we've learned, the banks don't find value, I guess, quote unquote, in properties that have more than 1 acre. So they won't take those additional acres into account. So technically we have 5 acres, so they only took 1 acre into account. So that was definitely a difficult part of like selling the land, and then also being able to find what is that called when we were trying to find the value of the property?
Yeah, so meaning the appraisals, but that was only for FHA loans that they had that rule that they would only consider 1 acre. So yeah, we were having difficulty finding buyers that either were cash or they had a type of lending that would consider a value closer to what the value of the farm really was.
So even if you're buying a property if you're buying and it has 5 acres, it's still considered 1, or is it only when, like, how does that work?
So that was only there was a buyer that was trying to buy it through FHA. And so
Oh, okay,
FHA
okay.
loans are a little bit more strict. And so
Got
with
you.
FHA loans, when they go to do the appraisal, their appraisal is a lot more conservative because they don't consider the extra acres. They just look at 1 acre of land and then they look at the property value. So really, the property value is the driver to that appraisal number, as opposed to like a more conventional or maybe an
Yeah.
investment loan type that their appraisal will consider more holistically the property.
So for a buyer, that could be a good thing.
For the buyers, yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
some
yeah.
buyers would say, hey, I'll put an offer for X amount, but it's subject to appraisal, and that's why you'll see a lot of
Mm,
times sellers here will put on their listings not subject to appraisal because they know that someone will
oh,
come in, they'll put in
yeah.
asking price offer,
Mhm.
but then you'll spend 30, 40 days of just wasting time because that's just going to lead to nowhere because they'll come back with an appraisal very low that you end up potentially losing on your investment.
Wow, interesting. Okay. So, you guys were having some trouble finding somebody. You guys ultimately found somebody, correct?
Yeah, we ended up finding
Okay.
somebody afterwards and sold.
So it was the property. It was 5 acres, correct?
5 acres, yeah.
Okay, interesting. And so, in you guys' opinion, is it does it matter if you go out there and find land and build property on it, or is your guys' strategy to find distressed property with land with it? Like, can you do either one? Is one more difficult? Obviously, putting a property on just land is difficult, but how is that process?
Yeah, it's more difficult doing it without a property without a construction on the land because
Right.
um, building from the ground up, you have to get a lot more permits. You have to
Mm,
get a septic. Probably if it's more of a rural place, then it's going to need a septic. And then you're just going to have a lot more loopholes versus if there was even an abandoned shack on that property, it at least will
mm.
have some infrastructure for you to just kind of more do a remodel.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Cool. I have a couple more questions. I want to get you guys out of here soon. I definitely have been appreciating this conversation and your time. I want to shift gears a little bit. I want you guys to give your thoughts on people leaving the island, leaving Puerto Rico. Like, I just had somebody on recently, and they have been living in the States for a long time, and pretty much she moved her grandma from Puerto Rico back to the States, and they sold their property out there, and pretty much uprooted everybody out of there. Right? What are your thoughts about Puerto Ricans leaving Puerto Rico, selling their properties to God knows who, and like, what are your whole thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the difficult part here are resources, because you mentioned grandmother, so I'm assuming she needed
Right.
some type of care. So the biggest part is just finding a good health care here for specific things. So in that case, like a lot of people move to the States to be able to find that over there. But I want to say here, I guess the difficult part as well is like finding jobs.
Mhm.
Sometimes that can be a little difficult. Also, the pay is less than the States. So that can be a challenge for some people as well. So it's really like, the balance. What is it that the person wants to,
Mhm.
live off of? So those could be factors or driving factors that can move people back to the States. So it
Yeah.
really just depends.
Yeah. I mean, I've spoke to a lot of people that they're just like hell bent on. They don't feel like we should be leaving the island, and we need to go back to the island and help rebuild it up. And I mean, ultimately, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, it's sad because it is our what we call home, and we feel pride in
Mhm.
our island. We feel pride in the resilience and the things that they've gone through and have been able to overcome. We find pride in the people that decide to stay and fight and
Mhm.
contribute to communities. But we also do understand in a very practical sense that there are some situations where you might have underlying medical situations,
Mhm.
maybe the type of career field that you're in It's not so competitive as far as wages here on the island. And so you end up having to make those tough decisions. I mean, hey, our parents made those decisions at one point in our lives, and we ended up benefiting from it. You know, we can't kind of comb over that. The fact that we speak English, the fact that we have the mentality of with the things that we've seen in the States have opened up so much opportunities for us back here in the island. So I think it's at an individual level. You know, you make the decision that makes sense for you. But we do, through our YouTube and things like that, try to push out there that, hey, Puerto Rico still has a lot to offer. The world is changing, and not everything is how it used to be, where you needed to go the conventional route of finding a job and things like that. People find entrepreneurship opportunities. People, you know, do trading. They get into the stock market. They get into crypto, which is pretty big here. They get into real estate, like in our story. And so if that's you and you're that type of person, Puerto Rico could be an amazing place for you, you know?
Absolutely. Look, I can definitely continue to talk to you guys, and I would love to maybe do a part 2. There's still a lot more to like discuss and break down. I would love to do a part 2, like in person, you know, maybe check out some of the properties that you guys have. I think this conversation was definitely inspiring for me, because I'm a Puerto Rican that's not from Florida. I'm not from New York. I'm from California. So I have a completely different perspective on being Puerto Rican. But like you said, that pride is still there, to where deep down in my soul, at some point in my life, I do want to take my family back home, you know, and I want them to experience that. So I think this conversation was very inspiring. And I think one of the last questions I have for both of you guys really is, one of the reasons why you guys left what you had in Florida is because you wanted to seek peace. Do you feel like you have found any of that peace in Puerto Rico? Have you experienced that? What level of peace have you experienced in Puerto Rico? Yeah.
No, definitely. I think the bigger picture for us was just being able to have more quality time. And more family time with each other. And I think kind of taking ourselves from what we know and who we know, and kind of just coming here and figuring that out ourselves has definitely brought us closer. And just the time of freedom gives us peace, just to be able to do what we want to do at the time we want to do it, and how we manage our time. That has been a big driving factor for us, you know, for me as well, and for our kids, because they get to spend more quality time with their parents, and we get to, you know, love on them and be there for them, and just, you know, just change the whole perspective for our children, who are the next generation.
Yeah, for me personally, like, I second the quality time. I think that us moving here really saved our family. The fact that we got to rediscover ourselves, we got to grow closer as a couple through, you know, some of the hardships and things of moving. You know, it is still difficult. You know, I know a lot of times people like to paint this beautiful picture of like, oh, you know, these YouTubers, they're just trying to sell a life that is kind of, you know, artificial. But we did have hardships. We did have moments that we were scared, that we were worried that things weren't going to go the way we planned. But what we did gain from being here was peace, in the sense of, you know, we get to spend so much time together as a family. I get to, you know, sit down with my kids, have conversations with them. They get to come to the work site sometimes. Things that when I look back, we didn't have in our rat race kind of family mentality that we had in Florida. We were just all about career, you know, birthdays, meetings, get-togethers, and then back to the career. And it was just so rigid that being able to come here and just open that up, and we got to see what really was important, which is quality time with family and time with God, you know, being connected to our church. All these things have just really helped us grow in our lives.
Beautiful. I love it. And that's exactly why I wanted to have you guys on, because like you said, there's so many people, especially on social media. You said you're going to get back into Instagram and all of that, but that's how people show us their highlights, what's good, what's fabulous. And again, I just love the fact that you guys show the ups and downs, the emotions. You had the the camera right there, right after you put an offer in, you didn't know what was going to happen. Like you guys documented all that. And so that's really inspiring to see, and just really appreciate you guys for hopping on today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having us. Yes. It was a good experience.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like I said, I don't know if you guys are down, but next time we're in PR, would love to do like a day in the life, something, just chopping it up with you guys and checking, the properties out. But
For sure.
Would love for you guys to leave your contact information, like the name of the YouTube account, wherever you want people to follow. If they have any questions, go ahead and let the people know, and then we'll wrap it up from there.
Yeah, for sure. You can find us on Instagram at Back to the Island. You can also find our YouTube channel at Back to the Island as well. And what else?
If you search Back to the Island on YouTube, just say Back to the Island, Puerto Rico, and that'll help get to the channel, Back to the Island, Puerto Rico, probably quicker. But yeah, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, it's all Back to the Island.
Okay, perfect. And I'll link everything in the description of this podcast. And you guys know where to find us at Latin Wealth on all platforms. If you enjoyed this episode, share this with one other person that needs to hear this conversation. And it's your boy, Chris. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.